name is Levi Higgins.
And my name is Hadley Simpson.
And our project is called How Does the Age of Swiss chard Plants Affect Their Salt Tolerance? What are aquaponics? Aquaponics is a method of growing food that combines hydroponics, which is when you're growing plants in nutrient water as opposed to soil, with aquaculture, which is when you're raising marine life in a controlled environment.
So in the aquaponics system, the fish will produce a waste that will act as a nutrient-filled fertilizer that the plants will then absorb to filter out the water. So why is this important? Aquaponics uses less water than traditional farming. It also produces food locally in urban environments and reduces the need for chemical fertilizers.
Our system, along with most aquaponics systems, is modeled on the nitrogen cycle. That's when fish release ammonia through their waste and their uneaten food, which the bacteria in the tank then turns into nitrates and nitrites. The nitrates and nitrites serve as food for the plants, which help them grow tall and delicious. The nitrogen cycle is what makes aquaponics systems stable and productive.
So what makes our system unique? Our system is designed to model the conditions of the New York Harbor, a brackish water ecosystem that has a salinity range from 12 to 13, higher than most aquaponic systems. We monitor ammonia, nitrates, nitrites, temperature, and pH. We have native species such as oysters and mummy chog that come from the New York Harbor.
This is a picture of our tank, which is modeled after the New York Harbor. We have our Swiss chard plants growing on top and our brackish water. Just like the New York Harbor, our water in our tank is partially salt and partially fresh water. We also have an oyster cage and our 5 mama chog fish named Ryan, 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 and Augustus.
How can this experiment serve as an indicator of the plausibility of growing Swiss chard or other salt-tolerant plants in the New York Harbor? What can we learn about common plants' tolerance to salt contents in water? So, for our hypothesis, we predict that Swiss chard will tolerate moderate salinity levels, a salinity range from 12 to 13 parts per thousand, while in comparison, mature Swiss chard plants will grow better than the younger Swiss chard plants, which will grow in higher salinity conditions. This hypothesis is based off the research that salinity can stress plants and affect water uptake. More developed plants may be more resilient to environmental stress.
Why did we choose Swiss chard? We chose Swiss chard because of its high nutrients and its nutritional value. It grows very fast, which allows measurable changes within a short experimental period, and it has a high salinity tolerance. This is crucial to our experiment because since our experiment is all based on growing in the New York Harbor, we needed a plant that could take on the high salinity levels of our brackish harbor environment.
Can this be the future of the Erie Basin and the New York Harbor? While Swiss chard can grow in brackish conditions, plants grown directly in the New York City harbor may not be safe to eat due to potential contaminants. Instead, our floating garden can be used for water filtration.
You can also see in the image, we have a rendering of what it would look like to grow Swiss chard aquaponically in the New York Harbor in one of our floating gardens that we designed in 7th grade last year.
What is our experimental process? So for our process, over time, we measured and recorded the average plant height. We also compared the growth based on plant age, young versus mature. We also analyzed how salinity may have influenced growth patterns. To maintain our consistent system conditions, we fed our mommy chogs and oysters at a constant rate and kept all of the variables as stable as possible.
We collected data over a period of 6-7 weeks, and we measured the height and the salinity of our young Swiss chard and older Swiss chard plants.
For our findings, based on our data, we found that older, more developed Swiss chard plants exhibited consistent growth rate of about 3 centimeters per week. In comparison, younger Swiss chard showed a growth of 1.5 centimeters per week. Being placed in the system, Swiss chard plants were already about, the more mature Swiss plants were already about 3 weeks old and relatively developed, which likely contributed to their ability to survive and grow in higher salinity conditions. In conclusion, we found that mature Swiss chard plants showed a greater increase in height while younger Swiss chard plants demonstrated a lower growth rate and in some cases died over time. Through our controlled experiment, we found that growing Swiss chard under high salinity conditions similar to those of the New York Harbor is possible, but only if the plants are already well developed before exposure to higher salinity. In our experiment, we ensured that our salinity and Swiss chard growth were the primary variables being tested. This was controlled by monitoring pH, dissolved oxygen, nitrite, nitrates, and temperature, as well as ammonia throughout the experiment.
Thank you so much to New York Sunworks and our teachers for this opportunity.